Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be looking at something kind of wild.
Oh, yeah.
It's how AI is being used to find extreme weather events
Right.
in history that we didn't even know happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
We've got some fascinating academic papers and book excerpts to dig into
Absolutely.
that really combine AI,
Yeah.
climate science, and a little bit of historical detective work.
Historical detective work, for sure.
So it sounds like this is really changing how we understand the past.
It's really changing how we understand the past. Scientists are using AI to analyze these huge data sets of climate information and look for patterns and insights that traditional methods just couldn't find.
So it's like we've got this superpowered magnifying glass for history.
Yeah, you can think of it that way.
Can you give us an example of what kind of events we're talking about?
So imagine like a really sudden drought that lasted just a few months, centuries ago, affecting a very specific region. It might not show up in broader historical records, but it would leave a mark in the climate data. And AI can pick up on these subtle, localized events that we might otherwise have just totally missed.
That's wild. It makes you wonder how much we've missed.
Yeah, it really does.
But how does AI actually do this? We're talking about events that happened a long time ago.
Exactly. AI, and in particular, a technique called machine learning, excels at finding patterns in data. Think of it like training a dog to sniff out something. You give it a bunch of examples. It learns to recognize the pattern. So in this case, we're training these AI algorithms on climate data. And they learn to identify the unique fingerprints of extreme weather events.
So we're not just talking about temperature records.
No, not at all.
What other data goes into this?
There's so much more.
Wow.
We're talking precipitation patterns. Tree ring data. Ice cores.
Wow.
Even historical accounts of things like harvests and floods. AI can weave all these together to create a more complete picture of past climates.
So it's like we're putting together this giant puzzle with pieces from all over. And then AI can help us see that final image that emerges. One of the papers that we have, human-level artificial intelligence, talks about something called dark neurons in the brain. These are neurons that don't fire very often, but are really crucial for certain functions. Is there a connection there?
Absolutely.
To how AI is finding these hidden climate events?
Is a great connection. Just like those dark neurons, AI can pick up on these tiny little signals within massive data sets that would probably be overlooked. If we were using traditional methods, they might be faint, but they could hold the key to understanding past extremes.
So the AI is like this detective.
You got it.
Picking up on clues that we might never even notice.
Absolutely.
Pretty mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
But how does this actually lead to a better understanding of climate?
Well, by finding these events, you're sort of rewriting climate history. It lets us build a more accurate timeline of extreme weather, which is so important for understanding long-term climate patterns and trends. This, in turn, can make our climate models better, which helps us predict and prepare for our future climate challenges.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
We have an excerpt from the book Deep Learning that mentions something called the reparameterization trick.
Right.
It sounds like a magic spell or something.
That does sound kind of magical.
But it's a key part of how AI is getting better at this analysis.
It's very important. It's a little technical. But basically, the reparameterization trick lets us train these AI algorithms, specifically a type called a neural network, much more efficiently. It's like we're giving our AI detective a faster car and a better map to navigate all this climate data.
So neural networks are like the brains of the operation.
That's a good way to think about it.
And this trick helps them learn faster.
Exactly.
But can you break down how a neural network actually works?
Sure.
It still sounds kind of magical to me.
Well, imagine a network of nodes, all interconnected, kind of like a big web. Each of these nodes takes in information, processes it, and then passes it on to other nodes. By adjusting how strong the connections are between these nodes, the network learns from the data. just like our brains do. And this lets it identify really complex patterns and even make predictions from something as chaotic as weather.
So we're training a computer to think like a climate scientist, recognizing these patterns and anomalies that we might miss as humans.
Yeah, and the great thing about neural networks is they can handle huge amounts of data with tons of variables, way more than any human could ever process.
This is all pretty incredible.
It is.
But I'm wondering, how do scientists actually make sure that the AI is finding real events?
Yeah, that's really important.
Not just making things up based on noise in the data.
Scientists are very aware of that. Validation is super important. They compare what the AI finds to other information, like historical records or geological data, to confirm the events and their impacts.
So it's an ongoing process of discovery and verification. With AI leading the way.
Leading the way, but always being checked and balanced by other methods.
This is so cool.
It's very cool.
But let's bring it back down to earth a little bit and talk about why this matters. We've talked about how AI is finding these events. But what's the real world impact of this?
Well, that's where it gets really exciting. If we understand past climate extremes, it's really important for predicting and preparing for future ones by uncovering these events. AI is giving us a much more complete picture of how Earth's climate has acted in the past. And that helps us anticipate what might happen in the future.
So it's like we're getting this roadmap.
Yeah, you can think about it that way.
Of climate disasters to help us navigate uncharted territory as the climate changes.
Exactly.
That's a powerful tool.
It's incredibly powerful.
We're talking about more than just satisfying our curiosity about the past, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This has implications for how we deal with climate change.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest challenges in climate science is trying to figure out how often these extreme weather events will happen and how intense they'll be in the future. But having a more complete record of past events, thanks to AI, gives us a much better baseline for making those predictions.
So it's like if we only knew about half the hurricanes that happen.
Exactly.
We might totally underestimate how often they'll hit in the future. But AI is filling in those gaps, giving us a more accurate view of the risks.
And that's critical for everything from how we plan our infrastructure to developing early warning systems. So if we know a region has experienced these sudden droughts in the past, even if they weren't well documented, we can prepare for the possibility of them happening again.
It makes me think about that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Except we didn't even know about some of the past. So AI is kind of revealing that history for us.
It really is. And it's not just about preparing for these specific events. It's also about getting a more accurate picture of climate variability in general. That helps us understand the Earth's whole climate system, its natural cycles, and how sensitive it is to change.
So if AI can spot these really subtle events, does that mean that what we thought we knew about climate history is wrong?
Not necessarily wrong, but definitely incomplete. Traditional climate analysis methods were pretty good at identifying large-scale, long-term trends. But they often missed those shorter, more localized extremes. So AI is adding a whole new layer of detail to our understanding.
It's like we were looking at this blurry photo before.
And now AI is bringing it into focus, and we can see all these little details.
And those details matter. For example, let's say we find out that a certain region had a bunch of really intense, short heat waves centuries ago that weren't in traditional records. That information could be really important for understanding the potential for similar heat waves in the future.
Especially with climate change. So AI is not just telling us what happened. It's helping us understand why it happened and what it might mean for what's to come. Pretty powerful stuff.
It is powerful. But how do we actually know?
How do we know for sure
That these AI-identified events are real?
Right. Could they just be like statistical flukes?
That's where the validation comes in.
Okay.
Scientists don't just take the AI's word for it.
Right.
They check the findings with other information, historical account.
Archaeological evidence, even geological data to make sure the events were real and to understand what their impact was.
It's like a whole detective story.
You got it.
We're piecing together clues from all these different sources to build a solid case.
Right. AI is the lead detective, but it still needs backup from the other experts to confirm what it's found.
This whole conversation has really changed how I think about climate history.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not just this like static record of the past, but it's this dynamic, evolving story that we're still uncovering.
Absolutely.
And AI is playing a starring role.
It really is. And the exciting part is we're just getting started.
Right.
As AI keeps evolving.
Yeah.
Who knows what else we might find out.
That's what I love about science. It's this never-ending quest for knowledge. And AI is like this awesome new tool that we can use to explore.
It's a whole new era of climate discovery.
It is. But before we get too carried away with the future, I want to loop back to something we touched on earlier. Neural networks, they're obviously at the heart of all of this, but I'm still not totally clear on exactly how they work.
Sure.
Can we dive a little deeper into that?
Of course. I think it's worth understanding.
Okay.
Because neural networks are becoming so important in so many different fields now.
Yeah, not just climate science.
Right. Like we said before, they're based on the human brain. But let's break down that analogy a little bit further.
Okay.
So imagine that each neuron in your brain is like a tiny little processor.
Okay.
It gets signals from other neurons. It does a little calculation. And then it sends out its own signal.
Yeah.
And a neural network and AI does something really similar.
So we've got these artificial neurons passing information back and forth.
Right.
But how does that actually help us analyze climate data?
Think of it this way. Each neuron in the network can be assigned to a specific variable in the climate data. Like temperature, rainfall, wind speed, whatever.
Got it.
Then the network figures out how these variables all interact. And it identifies these complex patterns and relationships that would be impossible for us to find.
So it's like this giant web of calculations that's constantly refining its understanding of the data based on the connections between these neurons.
Right.
So it's making more sense now.
Good. And the amazing thing is that the network learns all by itself.
Oh, wow.
We don't have to program in specific rules. We just give it the data. And it finds the patterns on its own.
It's like a self-taught climate expert.
That's a good way to think about it.
Constantly learning and improving.
Yeah.
But this brings up another question.
Okay.
How do we actually know what the network is thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How do we make sense?
That gets at one of the big challenges with AI. What we call interpretability. Traditional computer programs, they follow these very clear logical steps. So it's easy to see how they work. But neural networks, they learn in a way that's much more complex, more interconnected. And that makes it harder to figure out the reasoning process.
So the AI is giving us the answer, but we don't always know how it got there.
Exactly.
And that can be kind of unsettling.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about something as important as climate change.
Right.
So scientists are working hard to develop techniques to make these neural networks more transparent. So we can understand how they're making decisions and have more confidence in what they're telling us.
So it's this balance between using this powerful AI and making sure that we understand it and trust it.
Right. And that brings up another point you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the reparameterization trick.
Yeah, the reparameterization trick.
Or deep learning.
Right.
Can you explain how that fits in?
Of course. The reparameterization trick is this really important technique that makes the training process for neural networks much more efficient. It's a little technical, but imagine you're trying to teach a neural network to predict the weather. You need to show it tons and tons of examples of past weather patterns. Well, the reparameterization trick is like a shortcut that helps the AI learn from those examples.
So we're giving our AI a crash course in weather patterns. That speeds up the learning. It can learn faster.
It can learn faster. It lets us train these networks on massive data sets without losing accuracy.
Got it.
And that's key when you're dealing with climate data.
Right, because it's so complex.
Yeah, it really
It
is.
seems like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible with AI and climate science.
I think we are.
Are there other areas where AI is making an impact?
AI is being used to improve weather forecasting.
Okay.
It's being used to analyze satellite imagery, to track deforestation and melting glaciers, and even to optimize renewable energy systems.
Okay.
It's really a rapidly evolving field with tons of potential applications.
It's incredible to think that AI is not only helping us understand the past, but it's also shaping the future.
Absolutely.
Of climate science and our efforts to actually address climate change.
It really is.
I'm curious, what about the limitations of AI?
Okay.
Are there things that AI can't do?
Sure, there are.
Or areas where we need to be careful?
Yeah, definitely. One limitation is that AI is only as good as the data we train it on. So if the data is biased or incomplete, the AI's results will be too.
So garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. We have to be careful about the quality of the data and how well it represents what we're trying to study.
Okay. What other limitations?
Well, another one is that these AI systems can sometimes be black boxes.
Right. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. It can be hard to understand why an AI came to a certain conclusion.
Okay.
And that can make it tough to trust the results completely. So transparency and being able to interpret the results are really important. And researchers are working on that.
So it's this constant process of refinement and improvement, making sure we're using AI the right way.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something you mentioned before.
Okay.
This idea that AI could predict unforeseen climate events.
Yeah.
Could AI actually warn us about something we haven't even imagined yet?
That's a really interesting question.
It is.
It's kind of pushing the boundaries of what we know right now about AI and climate.
Okay.
It's important to remember that these AI systems, they're trained on past data.
Okay.
So they're really good at finding patterns and making predictions based on what they've already seen.
So if we've never seen a certain type of climate event before, AI wouldn't be able to predict it.
That's the limitation right now.
Okay.
But as AI gets more sophisticated, more interconnected, it might be able to identify these subtle interactions, these emergent phenomena that we haven't even thought about.
It's like AI could become this crystal ball, showing us potential futures that we can't even comprehend right now.
And that's both exciting and a little bit scary.
It is a little scary.
But it highlights the potential of AI to not just tell us about the past, but to help us deal with the uncertainty of a changing climate in the future.
This has been such a mind-expanding conversation.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. Yeah, it's clear that AI is changing how we think about climate, the past and the present.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive.
Okay.
I want to leave our listener with something to ponder.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the technical stuff.
Right.
But I'm also wondering about the broader implications of this technology. How might AI change our relationship with the planet, our understanding of history, even our perception of time itself?
That's a great question.
Something to think about.
Definitely.
As we head into the final part of this deep dive. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into AI and climate extremes. We've covered a lot of ground, from the technical details of neural networks to the broader implications of AI, uncovering this hidden climate history. But there's one concept I want to explore before we wrap up. In one of our source materials, Human-Level Artificial Intelligence, there's this mention of ephaptic coupling. It's a little bit of a head-scratcher, but I'm curious how it might relate to what we've been talking about.
That's a really interesting point to bring up. Ephaptic coupling is this fascinating concept in neuroscience.
Okay.
It refers to a way that neurons can communicate that doesn't involve the traditional synapses.
Okay, the little gaps that neurotransmitters jump across.
Exactly.
So it's like a secret communication channel.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Between neurons.
Yeah.
But how does that relate to AI and climate?
It's a bit of a leap, but just like ephaptic coupling suggests this deeper level of interconnectedness in the brain.
Yeah.
AI might be showing us these hidden connections and feedback loops in the climate system.
That we haven't fully grasped yet.
So AI is showing us that the climate is even more complex interconnected than we realized.
Yeah, and that there might be these hidden relationships that are driving these extreme events that we're uncovering.
It makes you wonder if there's this whole hidden language of climate.
It's an interesting...
that AI is starting to decipher.
Yeah, like a code in the data that reveals how these events are all connected.
This has been such a mind-bending exploration.
It really has.
We've gone from neural networks
to
the idea of a hidden climate language.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has been. It's been a pleasure having you here to dive into this topic with me.
It's been great to be here.
Hopefully our listeners have a new appreciation for AI and the role it's playing in helping us understand our planet's climate.
I hope so too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's a reminder that we live in a world where science and technology are constantly pushing the boundaries of what we know and how we understand the universe around us. And as we keep exploring the power of AI, who knows what other incredible discoveries are waiting for us out there, not just in climate science, but in every field imaginable. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.